if I'm having a shake for a meal replacement, it's got whey protein in it. It might have another protein source in it, like casein, that's slower digesting. It will have fat in it. It will have fiber in it, so that it's more of a complete meal replacement, so that I'm not burning through my protein very quickly and feeling hungry later. The reason why I'm going to use a pure whey protein isolate or even a high concentrated whey protein concentrate is if I'm specifically targeting it around my workouts. That's really the only time that I would be concerned about just having pure whey protein.
So what if somebody has a whey protein isolate at home and they make a smoothie with that? Is that a good idea?
Don't add bananas.
Well, definitely don't add bananas. I would say that it is not an ideal protein source, because if you're looking at a smoothie for a meal replacement, you don't necessarily want pure whey protein. You would want whey protein with other things in it.
Okay.
So if I go to the store and buy like dimetized ISO 100, that's pure whey protein isolate. That's not really a meal replacement protein. That's not a protein that's geared towards somebody who's just looking to add protein to their diet. It's a protein that's geared towards lifting and athletic performance.
But so let's say I use a whey isolate and then I add like avocados in there and I add like greens and I'll add like some fruit or something like that. Wouldn't that be a meal replacement then?
It's getting closer. I still think that an ideal one, you wouldn't necessarily have an isolate. You would have a milk protein concentrate or a milk protein isolate, which has whey protein and casein in it. You might have additional whey protein because casein is a little hard to digest, so you wouldn't want it to all be casein, but you would want a mix of those whey proteins and the casein because that's what's going to give you the long-term satiety, and not just long-term satiety, but a continuous flow of amino acids, which helps with protein synthesis over the course of the day.
So versus, that isolate just being burned through within that, short time frame, exactly. And then you have like the rest of those like avocados and like greens and stuff that you're kind of living off of.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that's healthy fat and the grains are good fiber. That's great. But
like, would I be hungry again? As far as an
ideal protein source, I wouldn't go to a whey isolate.
Yeah. So what would you say that I would be hungry again within like an hour or so or two?
Well, it depends.
If I do that,
it depends on like 30 minutes drinking isolate, man. That doesn't.
I get hungry fairly quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Go ahead now.
One thing about the whey protein, people are jumping on this whole insulin resistance thing, and insulin resistance becomes such a big thing, and people are working to get their insulin levels down. But there's articles out there saying whey protein raises your insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's trying to keep their insulin down, wouldn't whey protein be something to avoid?
So there's a couple of things with that. Whey protein can raise insulin. It doesn't always raise insulin. It can. And the reason is, if I'm dependent on carbohydrates for a fuel source all the time, my body has ways of making carbohydrates. I don't need to eat carbohydrates to get carbohydrates for fuel. If I'm dependent on carbohydrates, basically if my body doesn't know how to use fat for fuel, my body will take protein and it will convert it to sugar. There's a process called gluconeogenesis.
In the liver or something.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Where my body converts protein to sugar. Even though whey protein is a fast digesting protein, even in that process, even if I'm dependent on carbohydrates, it will not be as big of an insulin spike, nowhere near as big of an insulin spike as if I eat carbohydrates. Because it's still a slow process to convert protein to sugar. If I'm not using carbohydrates as my only energy source, if my body's used to using fat as an energy source, then my body doesn't necessarily need to convert that protein to fat, that protein to carbohydrates. My body is going to use that protein, as structural molecules, as amino acids to help rebuild enzymes, and continue to use fat as an energy source. So if I'm really fat adapted, I don't get an insulin spike at all from eating whey protein.
Wow. So someone who's carbohydrate dependent could technically not use protein to the best use because their body is not efficient at metabolizing, right? Like what's it called, sarcopenia. That's one of the things by insulin resistance. So if they're eating protein and their body is so dependent on carbs, it's not going to use the protein efficiently, right? Or is that false?
No, that's not false. So it depends on how much protein I'm eating. Your average person doesn't get enough protein anyway. And if I'm eating my protein and converting it to carbohydrates, then I'm getting even less. So it's true in that sense.
Okay. So one of the easiest ways for people to increase protein is use whey. It's a 1.0 on the PDCAAS. Easy to a whey concentrate meal replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Going on to that, now you transition from pharmaceuticals to supplement industry. You said supplements are one of the most widely I think it's more misunderstood than almost anything else in nutrition. You have some experts saying supplements are useless, they're a waste of money. Some people saying I don't want to become dependent. I mean, if you were to educate someone who has no idea about supplements.
So one of the reasons why I had so much mistrust for the supplement industry is because I was looking at the sports nutrition market. And not just the sports nutrition market, all supplement industry is like this to some extent. People are looking to make money. People are not looking to make the best product in the world. So if I can get somebody to buy a product by advertising or by putting on the label that I have a great product and that I have some great ingredients, but I can save money by not putting enough of those ingredients in there to actually make it effective, then a lot of people are going to do that.
And you can do that in the supplement industry.
Well, people are not perfectly educated as to how much of each individual ingredient they need.
Yeah, and many times it doesn't even say it.
And most of the time it won't say. Yeah. So you get stores like GNC or the Vitamin Shop or whatever that have shelves and shelves and shelves of supplements, and I could go in there and I could try them, spend hundreds of dollars, every week trying different supplements, and eventually I would find some supplements that work great for me. But I'd have to spend hundreds of dollars on garbage before I found those good ones. And there's really no easy way to tell them apart. So for me, I bought a few supplements. The first time I bought creatine, which creatine is like the most studied supplement out there.
And also misunderstood. People are like, it's a steroid.
And it's also very misunderstood. But the first time I bought creatine, I didn't think it worked for me. It did nothing for me. Because the type of creatine that I bought was not very soluble, was not very bioavailable. It turned out I was drinking it, but I wasn't doing anything for me.
Wow. And they're selling this.
And they're selling it. And it was just creatine, which is a simple, very, very simple supplement. And it actually was the product that I was supposed to buy. It's not like they diluted it down or didn't put it in. They just used a really cheap version of it. I got it at Walmart, which is my own bad. I was probably not the smartest thing to do to begin with. I've learned not to buy supplements at Walmart, by the way,
or
in
Costco,
general.
probably even Costco. Yeah, pretty much any retail.
And why is that though? Why not Walmart and Costco? Because obviously people want to save money, right? Like that's where they go.
The problem is, in order to compete in a retail environment like Walmart, it has to be as cheap as possible. So the creatine that I bought was as cheap as it possibly could have been. And it wasn't, in order to get creatine's not very bioavailable. It is something that my body doesn't absorb very well. In order to get it to absorb well, it has to be, it's not even very soluble, but it has to be micronized properly. And then it also has to be taken with, it does better if it's taken with certain foods. But if I'm just drinking creatine that is basically never dissolved in the water that I'm drinking it, never dissolves in my stomach, I just pass it out without ever having absorbed any of it.
What foods?
Creatine does actually very well with protein or with sugar.
So you can add it in your whey.
I add it to my whey protein.